I'm Keith Mullen, the Executive Director of the NSBA, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the NSBA webinar series. I've lost track of how many we've done since the intervention or introduction or whatever you want to call it, and what this COVID-19 response has been. Everyone working from home, including myself, including Jolene, and many others who are watching today, and those who may be partaking in the recording after the fact. So once again, welcome Jolene. She is the founder of Clarity Coaching and Development, and she's going to talk to us today about facilitating, I couldn't read my own writing, Jolene, facilitating virtual presentations. So clearly something that I need to pay good attention to, as will many others today. So I'll just encourage everybody that's participating today that there are ways to interact with us. Jolene is going to take over with the presentation here in a moment or two, but before doing so, I'll encourage you to look at the Q&A and the chat options down below, and you can type your questions in there. And I would also encourage you to think about typing them in as they arise in your mind so that you don't forget about them later on. We will also, or however, have Jolene address the questions at the end of her presentation so that she can flow through in a very dynamic and organized way, as both of those adjectives apply very well to Jolene. So without further ado, and just again as a reminder, Jolene, I'm going to disappear from your view and everyone else's view. I'll be here obviously and partaking, but you'll soon see me appearing as our lovely NSBA logo. So without further ado, I will now mute my mic and turn it over to you, Jolene. So welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. All right. So I am going to show my screen if it will allow me to do so. There we go. And hopefully everyone can see that. There we go. All right. So virtual presentation skills, I'm going to talk for approximately 45 minutes, give you lots of tips, lots of tricks, and then open it up for questions at the very end. So thank you, Keith, and your amazing team at the NSBA for everything that you do for your members. We truly appreciate you. And of course, I love networking, and you have phenomenal networking events, the weekly, the lunch hours, and the annual events as well. So thank you again. You went through a little bit about who I am. Clarity Coaching and Development is my company. Toastmasters is where I got my start when I was in my early 20s. I got interested in public speaking. I also have a veterinary background. That's what I did in my 20s, and I'm still registered as a veterinary technologist. I'm a coach, life coach, executive business coach, and then I have the honor of teaching at 3 business schools up in Saskatoon. And just for fun, I'm getting certified as a positive psychology practitioner, NLP master practitioner, that's neuro-linguistic programming, and I'm halfway certified in psychological first aid as well through the Red Cross. And I just signed up for Daria Malin's Rethink Marketing program as well. I really like learning. So what I do, personality profiling, professional speaking, corporate team building, and a variety of topics. Today is going to be presentation skills, which with COVID-19 is now virtual presentation skills. So what we're going to do is I'm going to briefly discuss personality type, because I know a lot of you probably have done your personality, or you know me from networking and know that that is my passion. So I'm going to talk about how it pertains to presentation styles, adapting your behaviors, and then how to be engaging as a virtual presenter. If you can speak, you can influence. If you can influence, you can change lives. Public speaking is the #1 fear in the world. I'm completely aware of that, but a lot of people don't realize that it's just a behavior that you can work on. So what we're going to do, and Keith and I talked about polls, so hopefully this works, as I'm going to get Keith to launch the first poll, and it is, what are your most common speaking challenges? And I do believe on this one, you can choose more than one. And then Keith will share those results when he gets those, and that will help me further customize the presentation as well today.
Jolene, I'm just going to chime in here for a second because this is our first time we've done this. So I'm curious, do you see the poll that I've just launched? And
I can see it, but it won't allow me to vote because I'm a panelist.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm just going to encourage everyone who, if you haven't voted, just chime in with your vote, and I'll share the results here shortly. It'll be more interesting with the more participants we have. So I'll unmute myself again, or I'll mute myself again. There we go, a minute's up. So I am going to now share in the polling and share the results.
Awesome. See, that worked so smoothly. So getting nervous and forgetting key points was one of the #1 chosen answers. Being engaging, humorous, and I have no challenges. I love giving presentations. I like that. I didn't know if anyone would answer that one. I threw that in there just to see. Thank you. All right. So moving forward. Now, the one thing I do notice with Zoom, and you guys, if you've ever used Zoom and you share a PowerPoint, what you're going to notice is sometimes your clicker will just stop working. So you can use your mouse to progress the slides at that point. So this is something I've learned through virtual presentations. That's your first tip. So the golden rule is to treat people the way you want to be treated. Now, in presentations especially, and in networking, you want to treat people the way they want to be treated. So it's a flip on the golden rule, and understanding personality types, presentation styles is a really important thing, because if you're talking to a group of people that are quite different than you definitely want to be able to adapt your behaviors to that room to be engaging. So Myers-Briggs, 88% of Fortune 100 companies use Myers-Briggs. I am absolutely passionate about this tool. It can be used in so many facets: career counseling, with marriage, in the workplace. And it's based on Carl Jung, so it's Jungian psychology. There's 4 areas: extrovert and introvert, how you gain your energy; sensing and intuition, how you gather information; and then how you make a decision is thinking or feeling; and finally, your lifestyle, judging or perceiving. And I'll give you some brief examples, and I do have some screenshots, and this is from one of my reports, the Step 2 report, which does dive into the behavioral facets. So extrovert and introvert, there's some keywords there for you. If you've already done your profile in the past, you probably know where you fall. And if not, I'd like you to guess where you think you fall. So introverts often have a harder time opening up to people that they do not know. They have layers. So they often show their favorite part of their personality type only to themselves, and they show their second favorite to the world. So introverts can often be misread. Whereas extroverts, they tend to say whatever's on their mind, and they like to think out loud. And you're gonna notice that when you're watching different speakers. This usually comes out right away. So extroverts, initiating, expressive, gregarious, active, and enthusiastic are all behaviors that fall on the extrovert side of preferences. Whereas introvert, you see receiving, contained, intimate, reflective, and quiet. These are 2 screenshots from 2 of my clients, and you will see at the top here, this gentleman is an extreme extrovert, whereas this lady at the bottom, she's an introvert, but you can see she's developed a behavior on the extrovert side. So she's pretty expressive. So she might do just fine in public situations and really actually like to be around other people, but she's still gonna lose energy when she's in large groups for too long. And that's very characteristic of introverts. So type implications: extroverts like to discuss, they like interaction, they like ideas, they like to talk things through. Whereas introverts, they want time to reflect. So if you're doing a presentation, if you can send pre-work ahead of time or an agenda, especially for team meetings, that is really important for introverts, as their brain processes information quite differently. 65% of Canadians are introverts. A lot of people are shocked at that statistics. That's out of Psychometrics Canada from last year. So we're going to do another poll. I'll get you to launch this one, Keith. And again, this is an 8-hour course, my virtual presentations course. So I'm going to just briefly touch on some of these key points for you guys today. So see, oh, there we go. Oh, so this one, Keith, you want to go to the top, and there should be a drop down, and it should allow you to choose the next one.
Oh, no. Okay, view options. Okay, where do I go? Hang on, bear with me. My apologies.
So this is good because if you're doing Zoom presentations, understanding how to launch polls, how to do breakout rooms, there's actually a whiteboard option as well, which is really handy. So when you go to host another poll, you just need to click on it and then do the drop down menu, and it should allow you to choose which of the questions you pre-programmed into there.
I just found it. Awesome. Okay, here we go.
There we go. See? And if you've ever done one of the free online versions, it's actually not based on true Jungian psychology. So that might not be your true type, but I want you to guess what your true type is. And if you've ever done the true Myers-Briggs, then put what your type is. I'm just curious to see who we have in the audience.
So are you seeing the live updates as well?
No, only you get to see that.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. We got a neck and neck race here. It's going pretty high one way, but now the other guys are catching up. Okay. I'm leaving them open for a minute. Is that too long, Jolene?
Well, I think usually if they're about 80% of people fill them out, then I just close it and launch it.
Okay. Well, that's exactly where we're at. I'm ending the poll. Okay. And share results. Okay. Back to you.
It's right. It's perfectly tied. Introvert and extrovert 40%. And then, of course, a lot of people are unsure because you probably do have behaviors on both sides of introversion and extroversion. And usually when we're quite young, you'll see personality type very strongly in individuals. And as we get older, we start to flex and mature and learn new behaviors and become more mid-zone. Thank you so much, Keith. Sensing and intuition, this one's really important when giving presentations. And when I say giving presentations, that can be to one person. It can be to a group of 500. The rules apply the same. So sensing is basically when you're more detail-oriented when you gather information. And intuitive is more about associations and big picture. That's how they gather information. And this is important when you're trying to persuade someone to your way of thinking. So sensors are more factual, more based in reality, whereas intuitive individuals are more about possibilities and the future, and they really thrive on change. So here are two screenshots. That was me in 2017 and 2020 there at the bottom. As you can see, I have absolutely no behaviors on the sensing side, no detail orientation in my natural personality. I'm very big picture, intuitive, more of a visionary. And as you can imagine, and a lot of people who know me know this, bookkeeping is not my favorite thing. So detail orientation does not come natural for me. So if I'm doing a presentation, for example, to somebody who's very detail oriented, like an accountant, I'm going to want to make sure I have statistics and proof to back up every single thing that I say because they want to know reality. That's just a little tip. So sensors, again, practical applications. Give them specific examples. Better, I think the most important thing to know about sensors is they will question you and want to know how you came to your conclusion. So be prepared to answer that, especially with statistics. Intuitives, big picture, talk about the future. Talk about whatever you're trying to tell them how it's going to be in 5 years. Whereas the sensors are going to want to know, how does this apply to me today and now? So again, with COVID, you can imagine with change being forced upon so many people, the different personality types are reacting in quite different ways right now. So my stress management course is actually my #1 selling course because of this. So the neuron structure of the brain is quite different with these two. In intuitives, this is based on Hertziger psychology. The brain structure is more, the neuron connections are like a spider web. Whereas sensors, they're linear firing neurons. So again, step by step makes more sense for a sensor, whereas squirrel, in the kindest way I say that, but big picture, they don't mind hopping around with topics. So again, how you're going to present to a room, you want to make sure you talk about the future, but also how it applies to the present. 61% of Canadians are more detail-oriented, so that's an important thing to know. And we'll launch the third poll. Are you more of a detail-oriented person? Do you like your facts? Or are you more big picture, more on the visionary side?
Okay, how do I forget already? I relaunched the polling. Sorry, I think out loud a lot. That's the wrong one. And that. Okay, so now, I realize now what I need to do, I think. So
it's been a learning curve, learning Zoom. That's been my passion for the past month. There we go. So are you more detail-oriented or more big picture as you gather information before you make a decision? Intuitives, by the way, just a side note, are more often to switch careers multiple times in their lifetime because they really thrive on change.
Okay, anybody else?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I was just say last chance. I'm going to cut down the time frame here, so just encourage everybody to.
Perfect. So fill in your answer.
And boom. Okay.
Oh, lots of intuitives in the room, 75%. Oh, this one, there wasn't anyone who was unsure. That's very interesting. Next is thinking or feeling. This is how you make a decision. So you've already gathered your information. So this is how you actually make that decision. And depending on who's in your audience, you might tailor your presentation a little bit differently. So thinkers base their decisions on logic. They like to critique, they like to debate, and they like to pick out what is wrong with the situation so they can fix it. They are brilliant with strategy. Feelers are more on the personal side, more the values side, and they truly like to praise others. They also need it more in the workplace in order to feel motivated. They're often your cheerleaders in a room. If you're super nervous and you're at the front of a room presenting, they're usually the ones smiling or nodding their heads to make sure that you know it's okay. Oh, by the way, I put this in here. If anybody is looking for free stock photos to use in their presentations because it's illegal to just take them off of Google, Unsplash is one of my favorite sites to go to, and you can there's hundreds of photos that you can bring into your PowerPoints. This is myself here in 2017 at the top. And 2019, as you can see, I'm becoming less compassionate with age and less tender. And that's because I've been practicing more of the thinking behaviors because it's really important in business on the strategy side. But because I am so in preference on the feeling side, I usually hire coaches and mentors that are thinkers so they can bring that different perspective into my business. So again, this has applications also in mentorship. This is my friend here at the bottom. I'm not going to mention who it is, but as you can see, he is an extreme thinker. A 5 out of 5 on logic, 0 out of 5 on empathy. So you can imagine the two of us, when we work together or work on a project together, we really need to understand how the other person processes that information, but while they make that decision as well. So an example, if you're working with a group of engineers, most often, about 90% of the time, engineers are of the thinking preference. You want to make sure you can back up all your claims and be ready to have someone debate you on your facts. And don't be offended by it because that's a natural process for them. Oh, back this one. There we go. So before you speak, think. Regardless of your personality type, this is my favorite acronym. If you're thinking you want to say something, but subconsciously you maybe shouldn't say it, just ask yourself these 5 questions. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it kind? And for social media, by the way, before you post anything, ask yourself those same 5 questions. It'll make you a lot more friends. Thinking, 51%, feeling, 49%. I find absolutely no difference in gender with this one, but I do find quite a difference in careers chosen, so career niches based on this. So thinkers, logical reasons, make space for questions, build in room for debate. Feelers, they need to connect. Right? They want to learn about who that facilitator is, let them connect with everyone else in that room as well, use videos or photos of the participants so they feel that they're connected. So logic and values, you want to make sure you hit both of these preferences in your presentations. So 4th poll, 3rd poll, 4th, thinking and feeling. And using polls too is just a really great way to engage anybody who is on your call as well, if you're doing a virtual presentation like I am today. because not everyone's comfortable asking questions. And if, by the way, this is a side note, but if you're in a relationship with someone your opposite type here, it often causes some conflict, as you can imagine.
Okay, there's our 30 seconds.
Perfect.
I didn't give a warning this time.
That's okay. So 50% feelers, 25% thinkers, and then we have some unsure as well. Perfect. So last area, judging and perceiving. This is our attitude towards the outside world or our lifestyle. So there are some key words there. Basically, an easy way to remember this one, judging likes a plan, perceiving likes spontaneity. So J's, they like to know the goal, the plan, why are you presenting to them, how is this going to work? Don't do too much detail, but let them know the sequence of things that are going to happen. Perceivers like opportunities, they like spontaneity, they like options. So that's a really important thing. So using those whiteboards, you can do that as well. And that is an option available in Zoom on the basic package. So this one's important. I just wanted to reiterate the fact that you can always change your behaviors. As you can see in 2012, I was pretty clear on the J side. And in 2018 and also 2020, I am basically 3 of my behaviors, 4 in 2020 have shifted over to the perceiving side. Doesn't mean I'm a perceiver now. It just means that I've forced spontaneity into my life to be able to survive entrepreneurship. And I've had a lot more fun by practicing those behaviors. So there's my 2019. So you can't change your personality type, but you can always change your behaviors. So I think this is the last poll. Where do you think you fall? Do you like to know the plan? Think about when you go on a vacation. Do you need to book those hotel rooms ahead of time and know what you're doing? Or are you more, let's just get on a plane and see where it lands? Kind of think about where you would fall naturally outside of work in this area. Another tip too, if you're doing a presentation in person or online, if it's a long one, just let people know when the breaks are going to be, because that's really important for the judging preference.
10 seconds. There's your 10-second countdown.
And Jay's also like countdown, so that's also important. My cats are right beside me. So 60% J and 20% perceiving. Perfect. All right. So leadership. Doesn't matter what role you're in. We can all be a leader. But this was a Harvard Business Review book that I own, and I loved this quote. We need to shed our excessive need to be us. So being yourself is good, to be authentic, absolutely. But when you're presenting to a group of people that are of different personality types, different religions, different cultures, different values, it's so important to understand how to adapt to everyone in that room to make sure that they're engaged. So there is a communication report that does come with the 8-hour workshop that we really dive into the personality side of things. That just gives you some screenshots there. So body language, and again, we only have 45 minutes, so I'm going to give you as many tips as I can today. Using your hands when you talk, they've actually done a lot of studies with TED Talks, and those videos get more views the more that speaker uses their body language. So using your hands to really enunciate facts is really important. Also, I just spoke beside a world-renowned body language expert in Regina last year, and I learned something really cool. I knew that we should always be showing the palms of our hands because that brings trust, right? It shows that we have no weapons, that's where it comes from, but it also shows that you can trust us. And you'll see that news anchors do that a lot. They'll show the palms of their hands, so that's something you can easily do. Now, it's a little bit hard. You might want to back up when you're doing virtual presentations so that people can also see your hands if you're really trying to make a point. But Mark Bowden was his name. He said, you know, to keep your hands right around where your belly button is the perfect place throughout your presentation. Unless you want to make a big point, then you can bring your hands up a little bit higher. So that's an important thing. But if you hide your hands, people are going to think you're hiding something. So don't put your hands behind your back or across your arms, because that can also show that you might be upset or come across that way. How you're perceived is just as important as your intent, because people don't know your intent. So crutch words, again, Toastmasters, they used to have an counter. This is something also you can ask friends, or if you live with your partner, just say, is there any word that I often say that's irritating, that I keep repeating? And can you tell me when I say it? Because as soon as we start to recognize it and we're aware, we can delete it. I used to say a lot. Toastmasters, as soon as they started counting every single meeting, I deleted it pretty quickly. I also asked my friends recently, is there any words that I use that too often? And amazing came up, and that's my favorite word in the world. And so I'm now started to, Google synonyms and what else can I say? Fabulous, fantastic. So just little things, but the people that you trust, ask them, is there anything that I say that might be slightly irritating in front of an audience? So think about what time of the day you're giving your virtual presentation. In my presentation skills course, also my team building courses, I talk about time management. And this is an important thing to know, that between 9 and 11 a.m., people are at their best. About 65% of adults, based on their chronotype or circadian rhythms. So that is, are you a night owl? Are you a lark? Are you kind of in the middle? So if you can choose to present in the morning, you're going to have better engagement. So the first 3 things that people judge, there's about 10, and people often judge very quickly when they meet you or see you virtually. And this shocked me a little bit, was income level, intellect level, and trust. Could you be their friend? Are you trustworthy? Do you know what you're talking about? Income level, I thought, was fascinating. And the one thing that we can do based on income level, especially as a presenter, is just make sure your clothing is steamed or ironed, there's no stains, that you look presentable. Your body posture is another thing that people will notice immediately when you walk into the room, and it elicits confidence. So again, body language is so important. This is my new setup. As you can see, my fancy microphone here. I did not own any of these things until COVID happened, and I've shifted all my programs online. I also purchased, as you can see up here, this light, which is behind me right now, and it's actually really cool. You can change, as you can see, the different shades, and it was very inexpensive, but you will notice if you're watching someone present and they're in a dark room, it is really hard to pay attention if you can't see their facial features or their body language. So you want to look as professional as possible. I also bought something to lift my computer up just so that it is a better angle. And of course, the room behind you, you don't want it to be too busy. And clothing-wise, you definitely want to wear solid colors online always, because anything that's printed might appear fuzzy when it is recorded. So just something to know. And if anybody wants to know where I got the microphone and the light, just send me an email and I can send you the links. Stress management is a big piece of presentation skills as well, because a lot of people get really nervous. And I just signed up a client yesterday for private coaching for presentation skills, and she mentioned that she often sweats, right? People get nervous, especially if it's something that they're not used to doing. So here's a really cool and simple tip. I highly recommend using deodorant that is healthy for you. Riverstone Naturals is where I get my normal deodorant. It's super healthy. However, if you know you're going to be super nervous and maybe sweating on the stage especially, I highly recommend men's Mitchum deodorant for all genders, because you won't sweat for 2 days if you use that. But then it also helps with your confidence to know that you can put your arms in the air and you don't have to worry about sweating. So I really like to give simple tips that I've learned over the past 8 years of being a professional speaker, being a keynote speaker on a stage, because the more we can do to mitigate our stress, the better. Again, we don't have time to get into the stress management side today, but when we're under great amounts of stress, and I've seen this a lot with COVID, is we actually flip our personality type. So what is natural and normal for us, we actually bring the least preferred area of our personality to the surface. So that's where people often do or say inappropriate things, because we have not created those neuron connections in our brain, because those behaviors are not well developed. So this is what you might see during COVID too, is some uncharacteristic behaviors. So we want to inspire your audience to take action. Have a key takeaway at the very end of your presentation. And if you're in person, I always give business cards or a handout or something that they can take home that's more tactile. Now, of course, you could send out an email on the virtual side of things as well. Learning styles, I just wanted to touch on this briefly because this is separate from personality type, but just as important. Some people are more auditory, so you want to make sure that you influx your voice, that if you're excited, that you change your pitch, because auditory people, that's what's going to keep them engaged in your presentation. So they're listening to you. They may not even be watching the PowerPoint. Whereas visual, and a lot of adults are visual. When I do vision boarding or goal setting workshops, the reason I do that is about 70% of adults remember in pictures. So PowerPoints, whatever Prezi, whatever you want to use, I like PowerPoint to have pictures. The more colorful, the better, because that's how people remember, or videos. Kinesthetic would be when you touch something. So again, people that are more kinesthetic will often take notes during presentations. So make sure that people have a handout ahead of time if it's going to be, say, a 4-hour presentation so that they can keep up. And then emotional. People often remember what you made them feel, not necessarily what you said. So again, if you really want to get your point across, you want to make sure that you go on to that side of things as well. And I'm not sure if it's going to let me play this, but I'm going to try. It's a really cute video.
Many of you feel bad for this lamp. That is because you're crazy. It has no feelings, and the new one is much better.
So that is a simple IKEA commercial, but it just shows, and I'm not going to do a poll on who actually felt sorry for that lamp, but I did. And so something as simple as a video, just to break up your presentation, the polls, there's breakout rooms, just to keep people engaged. I just attended a webinar that said you have approximately 60 minutes, maybe 2 hours if you're really engaging, to keep people's attention online. So in person, you could do a full day workshop, but online, what I've done with my presentations is I've started breaking them up into 90-minute or 2-hour chunks and then separating them out into different days just to keep my audience's attention. So this is the last poll. How do you normally learn? And kind of think too, when you have a book, would you rather listen to the audiobook and take notes, or would you rather have the tactile experience of reading that book? That's a good example. It might help you in this area. I know for me, it's auditory and emotional are my top, but I think auditory trumps most, actually. If you've ever listened to an audiobook with a monotone speaker, you can imagine that you're not going to keep your audience's interest is if you don't change your pitch.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, here we go.
Kinesthetic, so a lot of kinesthetic, visual, auditory, emotional. And I've been studying generations because I think that's also an important thing to know what generation you're going to be speaking to. The newer generations, like the Gen, not the millennials, but more the Z, the Gen Z, is they like paperless everything. Everything is more online, more digital. But I'm a Gen X. And I prefer, and a lot of people often older than myself as well, the paper, the tactile. I want to take something home. I want to feel that I got that value. So just knowing your audience, again, in generations, in learning styles and personality, there's so much that goes into designing that perfect presentation that's going to be engaging to most of the people in that room. So thank you so much, Keith. I think that was the last poll. So here's some PowerPoint tips. For the more analytical, and this could also be the thinkers in the Myers-Briggs, data, evidence, exhibits, logical arguments, prove it, give examples, and case studies. Again, with the Myers-Briggs, I work with all different industries across the board. but I work with a lot of engineers, and I think it's because the Myers-Briggs is based on Jungian psychology, and they have a report and it rates them on these behaviors, right? So I know my audience. If I'm working with veterinary, for example, that's one of my backgrounds is in veterinary medicine, I totally change the presentation, even if it's the same topic as when I'm working with engineers, because you have different personality types in general based on the career choices. Emotional, again, benefits. You could have videos, metaphors, analogies. Again, intuitive people that are more big picture, they like metaphors. That is their favorite, or stories. Thought-provoking questions about the future, ideally. And this is a good book here too at the bottom, HBR Guide to Persuasive Persuasions. And I bought that in an airport actually when I was speaking across Canada, and it was a fantastic book. So have 2 natural ending points in your presentation. Another thing too, I keep a timer. Regardless if it's virtual or in person, I always have a timer. My clicker has, it vibrates when it's time for me to stop talking. I think it's so important that you end on time, because people will remember you as the speaker that took their coffee break or made them late for their next meeting. So that's just a really simple tip, but a really important tip. Turning words into diagrams when possible, that's also very important, because again, people remember in pictures, most adults do. Don't worry about how many slides you have. Just make your slides count. And Daria and I were actually just talking this morning, and we both agreed if you're going to be giving virtual presentations, having a hardwired internet connection to your laptop is extremely important so that you are solid. Everyone that comes into your presentation might be on Wi-Fi, or they might be in and out, but make sure if you're the presenter that you have no faults within your Wi-Fi or your internet connection. So some computers you do have to buy adapters, especially the new computers, they don't have the ports anymore, but that's something that you should always have just in case. Again, Zoom, I'm just learning it. It's been about 2 months and I'm no expert, but it's really easy to use, and there's videos. You can go into the Zoom I think it's one of the settings, and it gives you videos, tutorials on how to do things. The breakout rooms are very important for when you want to split people up into groups so they can discuss, and then you can bring them back. And as the host, you can actually hop into their rooms, check in on them, and then come back to the main screen. So it's a really cool feature. The backgrounds, people can have really fun virtual backgrounds if they want. The only thing I recommend with those backgrounds, if you're the speaker, don't do it, because even though it looks cool, and even if your logo's on it, which does look professional, if you use a lot of body language, it doesn't work very well, and you can look kind of sci-fi. So usually just have a normal background, and if you're near a window, cautious with the light, make sure you test it ahead of time. You might want to purchase one of these lights. And pets, I did bring up pets because honestly, most people love animals, or if a child runs into the screen, don't be too upset about that, because I think with COVID especially, having occasional animals in the screenshot reduces people's anxiety, it makes them laugh. So adding humor into your presentations with your memes perhaps, or having pets around, that's okay as well. And that's, of course, my veterinary background talking there, but they say during COVID, the rate of people Googling cat and dog videos has quadrupled, which makes total sense. So you want to appear confident, or you want to be confident, but also appear confident, credible, and competent. Those are the 3 areas that we focus on in the 8-hour course. So upcoming courses, and we're just about to the end here. I want to make sure I'm exactly at 45 minutes in case there are any questions that you guys would like me to cover. So I am doing an in-person stress management course at Edwards School of Business, Executive Education. It was going to be in April, but due to COVID, we have rescheduled it to October. However, I have been doing a lot of stress and change management workshops online for corporations, and I basically mail out or drive to whichever city and drop off the reports and books ahead of time, and it can easily be done via virtual platforms. But again, just remember this tip: if it's a one-day workshop, make sure that you break it up into 90-minute or 2-hour chunks if you can, even on separate days, just so you don't lose the engagement of your crowd, because Zoom fatigue is a real thing. Virtual networking, Keith knows this, and as much as I can, I'm at every single NSBA networking event. You have superior events. They are phenomenal. I highly recommend becoming a member of the NSBA if you aren't already. Their 4 annual events are just phenomenal. Again, So virtual networking, I also teach that online now. My preference is in person, but it can easily be done online with Breakout Rooms. The full 2-hour course is going to be on Wednesday, June 17th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And those are all on my website. And I am going to be hosting a virtual presentation skills course, the full 8-hour version over 2 days. And I will be giving breaks in between that. So it's not a full 4 hours each day. But I have found lately a lot of introverts, their preference is not to be in a group environment in person or online, because I will be watching you do a presentation and giving you tons of tips along the way. I also do private coaching, and that's really picked up this last month. So it would just be the 2 of us over 2 sessions. So if you really want to hone in on your presentation skills and also know your personality type to a great depth, that is a course you might consider. So this is kind of how that looks. Day 1, body language, we hit that pretty hard, and then personality. I dive into limiting beliefs as well, because I think that's really important to kind of think about speaking as it's just a behavior that I can develop and get better at, just like networking. Just because you might be fearful of it doesn't mean you can't become really great at it. And charisma can be developed. So this would be day 2. So I do talk about PowerPoint on day 2 a little more extensively. And goal setting. I always end my presentations with goal setting because I think it's such an important aspect to getting what you want in life. And even if you don't like presentations or it makes you nervous or you just really would rather not, what is your ultimate goal? Is it the sales side? Is it to get your message out? Is it to expand your contact sphere? What would you do if you were successful in speaking or giving that presentation or sales? Thinking about the big picture, especially with COVID, I found with my vision board workshops or goal setting, thinking about the future right now is a really good way to become positive very quickly, because right now we're not sure what's happening with COVID. It changes day to day. But if you start thinking about 5 years from now, this is what I see for my business, for my life, for my family, then it really gets you out of that fearful state and gets you into the solution-oriented mindset. Also called law of attraction, but I make sure I talk the thinker and the feeler language there. So I just wanted to give you one final example of the importance of goal setting. Tony Robbins is my favorite speaker worldwide. I've been listening to his tapes, and not to date myself, and his CDs for about 18 years now. And I put him on my vision board quite a few years ago. I also put a picture of a girl I met at a networking event there. Her name was Lori Ann. I had just met her, but I thought, it'd be really cool if we could work together one day. And we were basically the same personality type. So this was my vision board from years ago. And Lorianne and I are now doing podcasts together. She moved to Ottawa, but we are now combining our services, and we're going to create some online courses as well. And my favorite picture is I did finally get to meet Mr. Tony Robbins at Edmonton, actually. And if I didn't share my goals with those around me that I trusted, my employee or my coworkers or at the time, I never would have done this. So I think it's so important to share your goals and get other people to help you, especially with presentation skills. Get them to help you on those areas that maybe aren't so comfortable for you, because it'll get you where you need to go. So this was my favorite picture. And I remember my goal was not just to meet Tony Robbins. It was to give him a business card so I could network with him in case he ever wanted to bring me on as one of his speakers. And they told me when I got this picture that I wasn't allowed to have business cards or a purse, and they patted you down and you got like 4 seconds with him. And so I hid a business card up my sleeve and I absolutely networked with Tony Robbins. So what is your top career goal? Just something to think about. You don't have to answer that right now. And what is your top personal goal? Because that will relate to how well you are as a presenter, because you got to think about the big picture. What is your goal in being an excellent, charismatic presenter? So I wanted to end with goal setting because I think it's so important. And don't forget the platinum rule. So again, end your presentations with the key point that you want people to take home. And that is to treat people the way they want to be treated. And yes, it requires developing some new behaviors, but once you do it, it becomes easy. So stop expecting you from people. That was one of my favorite sayings that I found. Final tips. I already brought this one up, but always, always, always end on time, even if you start later than you expected. And that's actually a screenshot right here. I have about 4 clickers. I take 2 or 3 with me at all times in case one fails. So that's just something too. I'm a J in my personality type. I like to have a plan. But this one I purchased at Staples, and it was approximately $100. But what it does there's my timer, is it actually has a timer in it and it vibrates in your hand when your time is up. So you might have it vibrate to give you a warning that you only have 5 minutes left, and also always, again, have a timer at the podium or in front of you when you're giving virtual presentations. Because people often remember the last thing you say or do, but you must end on time. So again, provide a takeaway as well. And I'm going to open it back up to Keith. I don't think I can see the chat box, Keith, but if you wanted to read me any of the questions that have come up, I would be more than happy to answer them. And I did put my email on there for those that may not be comfortable sharing their questions online. You can definitely email me at any time. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Jolene. And I'm just going to take this moment to encourage our attendees today to pose their questions to us as of yet, which is typical. We don't have any questions arriving just yet. So I'll start off with a few of my own. And so my first question to you is, Jolene, it's a more personal, but it also reflects on very much your presentation in terms of the personality types and so on. And you've identified yourself as being, quite extroverted. And with COVID, putting you in the position you are in, like we all are in, how has that impacted you personally? And how do extroverts like yourself respond to that? How do you overcome these challenges?
Well, thank you for asking. I think that's so important. There's been a lot of memes created around introverts with COVID that they're actually pretty excited about not having to leave their homes as often. And introverts actually gain energy by being alone. So the introverts that are stressed right now are often the introverts that are living with a family or children that don't get that private time anymore, right? So there's still some stress involved. But as an extrovert, I gain my energy through networking and meeting people, and I miss hugging people. It's been really hard on myself. And what I've done to mitigate that is definitely Zoom, right? This is what we have right now. And seeing someone's face, being able to read their body language. I've been using Zoom with friends. I've been reconnecting with friends that I haven't talked to in years. I mean, we always could have done this, but I think if there's any good to come out of COVID, it's that connection with people that maybe aren't around us at all times. So I've been reaching out to so many people, and my clients are so phenomenal. They've actually been reaching out to make sure I'm okay because they know that I'm an extrovert and just wondering if I wanted to chat. And I know Daria mentioned this in a previous webinar that she was on, but this is the perfect time to be reaching out to your clients, see how they're doing. And that's where it doesn't have to be Zoom, it can be Teams, whatever online platform your preference is, but just to reach out and don't be alone as an extrovert or an introvert. Because when extroverts get really stressed out, we flip our type and become more introverted and start to disconnect from people. And that's a red flag. So I've been doing wonderful with the virtual platforms, and I'm going to be driving out to my parents' farm too, practicing safe physical distancing as well, but just to see family members, which we are allowed now under 10 people. So I think that's important to do what we can and to reach out by telephone or Zoom at all times.
Sorry, my mouse wasn't working for some reason. I was muting myself between questions, and still, I can't recall the exact numbers that we had, but I do think that we had a higher introverted group than extroverted, and that's showing up in the Q&A panel discussion here because questions have yet to arrive. And so once again, I'll encourage everyone to provide their questions so that I don't have to bore you with my monotonous tone and and I don't know if you can see me or not, but I'm using my hand.
I can see you.
So with regards to the Toastmasters and your learning skills in terms of the public speaking, how long did it take you to break the bad habit, like you talked about the situation with yourself? How long did it take you to overcome that obstacle?
Absolutely. The Toastmasters, again, they had an counter. So it was pretty embarrassing when you had 40 in one meeting. I needed that. I needed someone to call me out on it and hold me accountable. So I think it could be one person, it could be group. Toastmasters was wonderful for me. My first presentation I gave in 2001, I was asked to present to a group of 25 people and I didn't want to, and it did not go smoothly. So I've not always been amazing at public speaking, or I haven't always enjoyed it. It was because I didn't do well that I decided to join Toastmasters, and it really improved those skills. So it took me the 3 years that I was in Toastmasters, I'd say at the end of that, I was pretty solid with my speaking. And then I ended up teaching Dale Carnegie training, and their training was amazing. So again, there's my amazing word, right? So I think the combination of Dale Carnegie, Toastmasters, my friends holding me accountable, practice. That's it. Just keep practicing and you will get better at every single thing that you do, because you create neuron connections in your brain the more you practice something new. So I promise it will get easier. Yeah.
For sure. Okay. Okay. Still waiting on any questions. And that may be the case, Jolene. I might be asking you all of them, and that's fine, because I know that I can keep you for hours on end with the amount of questions I have for you. And you and I have connected on so many different occasions in the past, as you mentioned. And thank you as well for the compliments about the NSBA. And I'll just reiterate that the reason why the NSBA is so phenomenal is because of great members like yourself. And so that compliment is directly turned back towards you, because we couldn't do what we do without the participation and engagement of our members. But you're absolutely right, and I'm speaking about this as a participant as much as an organizer, because I remember the days back when I was a member of the NSBA in my business and so forth, and just always had that connection, that synergy and that welcoming atmosphere that we've become quite well known for. That's just part of our culture, and so. But it is the members that make that happen. My next question is in relation to giving presentations. When and recognizing that you're a high energy, fully competent and very well and very popular public speaker, do you? My question is, when you're not feeling it, like we all have those days when you're maybe not in direct. Sorry, I'm getting distracted here. Direct connection with your true self and giving that presentation and so forth. How do you pump yourself up when you don't feel it, when you're not feeling it? You know what I mean?
Definitely. Well, I know Tony Robbins, again, I've listened to over 200 hours of his material, but he always talks about moving and getting your body moving. It might be jumping up and down and getting the blood flowing. Smiling and releases neurochemicals in your brain that helps you be in a better mood. So there's the body language stuff. But I find a really simple tip, and it is so easy, and anyone can do this, is to create, and again, I'm going to age myself here, but I make mixed CDs, but you can use your online music platforms as well. But having songs that remind you of the past, that just pump you up. Those songs that your favorite songs, if you listen to a song, it's called anchoring. It'll take you back to that moment. It'll change your physiological state. So if I'm driving to an event and I'm feeling nervous, and I do, right? Even as a speaker, I still get nervous. Then if I listen to those songs, it puts me in this amazing physiological state. And then again, with the body language, the posture, all of it matters. And also, this is just a tip in general. If you're ever having a bad day and you're a business owner, go to your website, or what I do is I create a book called Proud Moments, and I bring my favorite testimonies or articles that have been published, and I have them all in one place so that it can really just uplift you and remind you why you're doing what you're doing.
Those are great suggestions all around. So when in your experience with Tony Robbins, so you mentioned the ability to hide your card and network and so on, which was very innovative and creative on your part. Have you tried reaching out or had any further follow-up with him or his people? I recognize you've got a whole entourage of people in terms of opening the door to possibilities around you being on the stage with him at one day. Is that something that you've done any actual tactical work around?
I haven't yet, but I've been following The Power of Success, which is the group of speakers that he takes across the world. And that's something that I'm looking into. How do I get into that, right? Because he has my card, of course, but he's Tony Robbins. He's a pretty busy guy. I think he has multiple companies at this point. Actually, I just read that he just donated $10 million to food banks in the United States. So cool. And I think doing good, right? I think during COVID, that's just a general tip of how can you give back and really get your focus off of yourself if you're having a bad day, is also another way to mitigate that fear that we're all feeling right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have no doubt that one day you'll be on the stage with him, Jolene, and I'm going to actually just give one last call for anybody that wants to participate by way of questioning to send yours through the Q&A or the chat portals. But being that we haven't gotten any yet, I'm not anticipating to get a rush here towards the end, but maybe what I'll do is I'll just close off with a compliment once again, Jolene, and I've seen you public speak many times, and including online, and you're an absolute natural at it, and you are inspiring to so many of us that try to, there's the be as good as you are and professional as you are, and certainly as engaging as you are, because you definitely do bring that. And the strange thing, maybe it's not a strange thing because I think it is showing the true and authentic you, is you appear much the same in one-on-one conversation. What you appear when you're giving a presentation is not much different from a one-on-one conversation with you. So I think, again, that just speaks to the professionalism that you bring to the fore, and the type of personality that you are as well. So well done. And I see we have one question. There we go. Wonderful. Okay. Sorry, that's why I've got my glasses on. I'm leaning in. Hi, Jolene. It's Branley. Branley's providing a question for us. Any suggestions on how to make a home office feel natural? She loves being cozy on the couch, but we all know that that's not the most productive work. So setting up a home office, what recommendations do you have, Jolene?
One of my tips was going to be, I forgot I was going to say it, is as comfortable and fun as it is to wear pajama pants during all of these Zoom meetings, and I did it in the beginning too. You never know when you're going to have to stand up or show something or grab something. So always dress professional. That helps get you in the right mindset, especially if you're the presenter. And with your office, make sure, like I have a really amazing ergonomic chair, and I have everything set up ergonomically now with where my keyboard is placed and where the light is. And I think, and this wasn't very expensive, but it gives that feel of professionality that maybe a different room in your house wouldn't. And a lot of people don't have the opportunity to have a whole office, especially if they're not used to working from home. So you might just designate a corner of your house, have a clean table so that you feel that you can focus. I think that's a really important thing to do as well. But it doesn't have to be a particular place in your house, but dressing appropriately and having the ergonomics correctly just helps you get in that mindset of, I'm super professional today, right?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I worked in a home office for 7 years, and was just commenting to my team this morning about how I used to not have appointments until later in the day usually, and so I would stay in the sweatpants and ball cap until it was time to go out, and then jump in the shower for later in the day. But now, I treat every day like a regular work day. I'm ready to work in the mornings, get ready, and put on real clothes, and but a lot of times it's because I have a Zoom call and whatnot. But even on days where I don't have a Zoom call, it's I agree wholeheartedly. It's real important to have that mindset that this is a regular work day, and even though there will be many distractions and or challenges or differences, I guess is the biggest thing in terms of how you normally work. These are, what you can do to normalize as much as you can, I think, is the best thing you can do for yourself, for your own productivity, and especially if you're a team leader, for the rest of the team to try and emulate that normalcy, because as we all know, it's not normal.
Oh, and the lighting too. Whatever area of your house has the best lighting should be where you're giving that presentation from. And again, that light, my birthday just happened. So, and again, it was like a bit of a cost, all of this stuff, but I just asked for each one of these pieces from different people for my birthday. So this is how I have my little virtual setup now. So again, just a couple things. Proper lighting is really important. And again, Keith, I just wanted to thank you as well for supporting me and my company from the very beginning. I joined NSBA, I think it was the day I launched Clarity Coaching, and I would not be where I am today without the support of your association. So thank you.
Awesome. You're welcome. I'm pleased to hear that. That's a wonderful testament, again, back to the organization and the members that we have. So a good first move on your part, though. So well done in terms of joining on the day that you established your company. Well, Jolene, I see we're just about at our 1 hour time frame, and so I'm going to maybe just close off a little bit early if you don't mind. And if you have, I'll put it back to you for any last closing comments or thoughts that you may have you want to leave our attendees with today.
I think just, you've got this. I love that saying. And I think we all have the ability to be super charismatic as speakers and networking. It's just to practice those behaviors, and we all have that ability. So have an amazing day and enjoy the sunshine.
All right. Thanks, Jolene. We'll talk to you soon. Great job. Bye-bye.